of our families. I'd also want to thank Representative Sheila Jackson Lee, who has been an early advocate and champion of the Escobar family. To all our elected officials who make speeches about family values, here is a chance to live those values. I ask you to stand on the side of American families and the values that bind the fabric of this nation. End the assault on our community, end the assault on our families, and end the assault on our children. Children like Walter here, who's still waiting for his dad to come home. His parents, his father, their father, were not a threat to their community or to this country. We must stop the assault on these children and our families. Now, I'd like to turn it over to our Democratic leader, Senator Schumer, from the great state of New York.
Hi, Walter. Well, thank you, and it's an honor to be here today. I want to thank the National Council of La Raza, Janet Murguia, for inviting me to speak. I want to thank my dear friends and such great leaders on this and so many other issues in the Senate, Senator Hernandez from New Jersey, Senator Harris from California, and all of you for being here. But a special thanks to Rose, Walter, Fatima, and Yuleni for standing up. It takes a lot of courage to do what you're doing, and we appreciate it, and it may save lots and lots of families. So what you're doing is brave and wonderful. Now, from day one of his campaign, President Trump said that if elected, he would go after immigrants. And that is exactly what he has done as president. He somehow wants America to think that all immigrants are criminals, terrorists, when we know immigrants are the American dream. And generation after generation after generation, including this one, has embodied just that. President Trump's budget cuts money on infrastructure, taking away jobs. No health care bill like he promised. But no slashes in cancer research that save people's lives. None of that. But what he's done is target and persecute immigrants and refugees. The policy of his administration have instilled fear, pit us against each other, divided our country by ripping families like these apart. And despite what they say, this doesn't make our country any safer. In fact, it makes us less safe. The president's immigration policies are destroying local economies, causing chaos and panic in families and communities who have done nothing wrong. By using racial profiling and fear-mongering to target law-abiding immigrants, the Trump administration is putting people with a traffic ticket or a status violation in the same category as serious violent criminals, wasting valuable and limited resources on people who should not be priorities for removal. And that makes us less safe. Sadly, there are thousands of families going through the same pain and hardship as the families of Walter and Fatima, Yuleni, all of them are going through right now. Millions of children who are U.S. citizens with at least one undocumented parent who worry every day whether their mom or dad will be home when they get back from school. What a horrible thing for a kid to have to worry about. Americans. And if this weren't enough, the Trump administration is requesting additional DHS funding to build a border wall and hire a deportation force. Instead of spending taxpayer dollars on a pointless wall, we should be investing in creating jobs and fixing our infrastructure, not in separating American families, harming kids, and local economies who are without workers who work so hard. And I've heard from small business leaders who are worried that they won't have the workers they need, which gets our economy growing. Immigrants are an integral part of this country. Democrats will be vigilant and strong in our commitment to upholding the promise of America and shielding immigrants from President Trump's policies. Senate Democrats are prepared to fight this all the way. My message to all of you: keep organizing, keep calling, keep marching. Your voices are heard loud and clear. Your actions, as what we saw happened with health care, make a difference every single day. I thank La Raza for inviting me.
Thank you, Senator.
Oh, I'd like to read, could I do this?
Oh, sure.
Senator Feinstein couldn't be here, but she cares very much about this issue. And I just want to read a couple of sentences that she has written, if that's okay, Janet. Under President Trump, this is Senator Feinstein's words, 11 million undocumented immigrants are priorities for deportation, a heartless policy that betrays our country's values. The effects of this shameful policy are increasingly visible in our communities, particularly among children who have been abruptly separated from their parents. It's estimated that 1.5 million children in California have a parent who's undocumented. Tearing families apart has profound effects on children, making it more difficult for them to learn and develop emotionally. I, Senator Feinstein, stand with these California families, and we will be doing all we can to keep them together. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Schumer. We appreciate your strong voice and leadership. Now, I'd like for you to hear from
Wix,
one of our
you can create
families.
your own professional web.
For Rose Escobar,
This
the
is
spouse of
here.
wife of
And
Jose
if I
Escobar,
add,
to come up and
this
speak for a few
picture,
minutes.
So it's just show the gray skin here.
Hello
So
everyone.
we cannot capture anything.
My name is
So now
Rose Maria
today
Asensio
we're gonna
Escobar.
fix this one.
I am a U.S. citizen.
At first you
I'm-
have to open setting and then go to the advanced, send the renderer to the OpenGL. And okay, so it's not showing here yet until you just restart it. Now it's showing, but if you try to record and try to stop here, and we open it up, open it. And change here this one to this one. Now this one. Capture anything here. So we cannot capture anything. So now today we're gonna fix this one. At first you have to open setting and then go to the advanced, send the renderer to the OpenGL.
All right, hey guys, how you doing? It's Molly here. Thanks for joining me. If you are here watching, you're watching Fox 5 live in Washington, D.C. It is Lady Gaga's 31st birthday, so that's what's getting us all excited today in the studio. But we have lots of news to get to, a lot of live events, political stuff happening, and I'm going to bring that to you now. So first, just welcome. I want to thank you guys for watching. If at any time you want to get in touch with us. Don't forget to use that handle, Fox5DC, the hashtag Fox5Live, to tweet at us and join us on all our platforms. And I'll be watching for your chats on our YouTube stream as well. But first, I want to take you to a press conference that happened earlier, just I want to say 20 minutes ago. D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser and Acting Police Chief Peter Newsham speaking on an expansion of the cadet program and also taking some questions about some other interesting happenings that we've been covering on Fox 5 related to recent murders in D.C. and news. Our reporter Matt Ackland was also there to ask some questions. So we're going to bring that press conference to you and then some more live news as well. So take a listen here.
Back the other way.
Good. You're good. It's a
Good morning, man.
Good morning.
Ever told you?
We almost ready, guys?
one more camera. Go ahead.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. I'm Muriel Bowser. I'm the mayor of Washington, D.C. We are here today at the Police Tactical Village here at the MPD Police Academy. I'm joined by Police Chief Peter Newsham, our cadets, and many members of the Metropolitan Police Department. We are here today to talk to you about an expansion of a very important program in the Metropolitan Police Department. You know that we are focused on how we continue to grow bonds of trust between our law enforcement teams in every community in the District of Columbia. The tactics that the chief has deployed in the district are those tactics are paying dividends. Last year we saw a 10% decrease in all violent crimes citywide, a 17% reduction in homicide, and a 13% reduction in robberies. And already this year the chief is focusing our resources on how to continue to drive crime down all across the city. We see this progress because of our hard-working MPD team, the men and women who every day show up and provide services to the residents of the District of Columbia. We are also very focused on how we continue to grow the MPD team, recruiting the best and the brightest, but also very focused on how we recruit the best and the brightest right here from Washington, D.C. We know when departments reflect the communities they serve, people who know the city and are invested in the city, we see better results. So we're very focused on how we can recruit right from Washington, D.C. The young people you see behind me are members of our current Cadet Academy. We have 38 young people this year who will go through the academy. Through this program, it is currently a $1.8 million investment. DC high school graduates can earn a scholarship to attend the University of the District of Columbia while they are working at MPD. After earning 60 credit hours, the cadets are eligible to become MPD recruits and complete their training right here at the Police Training Academy. So Chief Newsham will talk to you in just a few moments about more about this exciting program. Last year, just 15 young residents joined the Cadet Academy. This year, we have 38. And next year, because of our new investment, we're planning to bring on up to 70 DC police cadets. And we are very excited about what this means for hiring D.C. residents to be a part of the Metropolitan Police Department. And I think you can also see we've been very successful in targeting and recruiting a population in our city that we want to look at the police department for a career, and that's young women in Washington, D.C. All of these proposed investments underscore our commitment to making D.C. safer and stronger. And I'm happy to have the chief come up and talk to you more about this retention program. And the chief will also answer questions and provide a briefing about an arrest in a recent homicide case in the district.
All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today at the Metropolitan Police Department's Academy in our Tactical Village. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. I think the presentation gives you some sense of the dangers that some of our officers face on a daily basis. I want to thank Mayor Bowser for outlining the significant financial investments into growing and perfecting the Metropolitan Police Department's sworn and civilian personnel. I know that we are the best police department in the country, and I'm excited to be able to offer the best training and programs to our officers in return. Our officers are asked to do an incredibly tough job. As we plan for the future, we want to make sure to create an environment that promotes the best people to come, to stay, and to learn to grow here at MPD. To begin with, we are excited to see the success of our Public Safety Academy at the Anacostia High School. These young men and women are currently receiving valuable skills which they will be able to employ in our MPD cadet program. The cadet program allows district high school graduates to attend the University of the District of Columbia while working for MPD. Upon attaining 60 college credits, the cadets are eligible to become MPD recruits and complete their police academy training. As the mayor mentioned, 18 of our cadets right now are women, and we are always trying to attract women to our agency. We anticipate increased enrollment in the academy in 2017 and 2018, and we'll be excited to welcome these young men and women into the cadet program as well. In fact, my proposal is to double the amount of cadets, increasing the size of the program from 38 to 70. In fact, you know, we have a great example of one of our cadets standing behind me to my left. Bob, you want to step forward for a second? Bob Conti, who's currently an assistant chief for the Metropolitan Police Department, started in our cadet program. And I had Bob come forward so the cadets standing behind us can see what they can be if one day they want to be. Thanks, Bob. We're also pleased to announce the success of our police officer retention program, which aims to retain experienced officers through student loan forgiveness. Almost 90 officers were selected and received awards totaling over $950,000 in exchange for obligated service agreements. Further, our 2017 budget allowed military members and law enforcement officers who have worked in other jurisdictions to substitute their years of experience in the military for the 60 college credit requirement. Our current budget supports hiring an additional 360 officers, and we're eager to fulfill that goal. Naturally, our civilian employees play a key role as well, and in an effort to get more uniformed officers on the street, we are increasing efforts to hire civilian employees to perform some of the administrative functions formerly done by police officers. This is a key measure that will improve our efficiency and allow more uniformed personnel to return to field duty. We're also pleased to offer so many benefits to MPD officers that truly make the District of Columbia a great place to work. There's no better place to work than MPD. We want to attract the best and the brightest, so I urge anyone who's interested in a law enforcement career, they can join our cadet program or go to our website and join our recruits. Like the mayor indicated, I have some information relative to a closure of a homicide in our city. As you all may be aware, following an earlier press release, detectives from the Metropolitan Police Department's homicide branch have made an arrest in the homicide of Karina Mio, a young lady from Burnsville, North Carolina. The 34-year-old was found stabbed to death inside of a residence in the 600 block of 14th Street Northeast. In the immediate days following, the Metropolitan Police Department provided images to the public of her vehicle and a person of interest. We received numerous tips from the community which led us to the recovery of her vehicle first, and days later to the individual we believed was responsible for her death. Yesterday, because of those tips, 28-year-old El Haji Alpha Madu Torre, of no fixed address, was taken into custody. He was arrested for an outstanding warrant and from the Bradley County Sheriff's Office in Tennessee. He was transported to our homicide branch, where he has subsequently been charged with first-degree murder while armed. Before we take any questions, let me note how important the community tips were to the Metropolitan Police Department in closing this case. We could not have solved this case without the support of our community, and for that, we will be ever grateful, and I am sure the Meal family will be grateful as well.
Where was he arrested, Chief?
He was arrested in the 5th District. I don't have that address in front of me, but we'll share that. I think it was in the press release. I don't think we released the location of that. We're going to keep that. It's part of the investigative package.
Can you speak at all to motive?
It does. I can't speak to motive. It does not appear that the suspect knew the victim. We don't have any information to suggest that at this time. He was wanted for, it looks like, a probation violation, which was held by the Bradley County Sheriff's Office in Tennessee. I can tell you this. We received numerous tips. Some of them were more helpful than others. I don't want to discourage anybody that brings tips forward, because every piece of information that we get is critically important. But there was a tip from the community that was instrumental in us being able to close this case.
Can you speak at all more to the suspect? You said he had no fixed address. Was he living on the streets?
We believe that he was staying at local shelters.
And you know what? I hate to say it, but I got to say it. You know what his immigration status is?
I do not. I think you know that the Metropolitan Police Department does not ask questions about immigration status. The other thing that I would really think is important to mention is that we had 2 young ladies that were killed in our city in a very short period of time. It was very important for us to get tips from the community relative to this case. We're going to continue to urge folks who have information to come forth in the case of Alana McAllister, who was killed in the 4300 block of Benning Road. We have not received a great deal of information about that case, and if anybody has any information about that case, we urge them to come forward.
All right, guys, we're going to bring you out of that. That was minutes ago, just about 20 to 30 minutes ago. A newser there with our mayor and our acting police chief. And obviously, as acting police chief Newsham mentioned, immigration being such a huge hot topic, such a big thing in some of these cases that are going on in D.C. Concurrently, right now, live on the Hill, we have Senate Democrats speaking about immigration. I'm going to bring you there live right now.
Y por eso es tan importante tener, aunque duele mucho oír, tan importante de que se realice, que son personas reales que están siendo afectadas en este país en este momento a baja determinación. And I'm pleased.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Hernandez. We'd like to hear from our last speaker today, someone who is new to the Senate, but is not new to championing the cause of justice for our community. We worked closely with her when she was Attorney General of the state of California, and now we are working even more closely as she takes on her new role here in the Senate. Thank you, Senator Kamala Harris, for being with us today.
Thank you, Janet, for all your longstanding work as a national leader on this issue. Rose, I want to thank you for your courage. And Fatima and Yuleni, I'm so proud of you. And they're Californians, and I'm so proud of who you are. And I know you're going to law school. I can't wait to see what you do. I think this is, I think we're at an inflection moment in the history of our country. I think of this as being a moment in time similar to that moment in time when my parents met when they were active in the civil rights movement in the 1960s. I think this is a moment in time that is challenging us as a country to look in a mirror and ask this question, who are we? When we have bright young students like Fatima having to come to Washington, D.C. and share such a tragic story when she could otherwise be dreaming about the days that she will go to law school, playing with her friends, being engaged in the way that we want all of our bright young future leaders to be engaged. We know something is wrong. We are being challenged as a country to look in the mirror and ask this question, who are we? And I believe we are better than this. And I know it to be true because we are a country that was founded on certain ideals. The ideals that were present when we wrote the United States Constitution, the ideals that were present when we said that we are a nation that we knew always was founded by immigrants. We are a nation of common ideals and common ground and common values. We say we prioritize faith and family. And so when we look in that mirror, I think we all know that we are not being true to the ideals of who we are when we have a policy from a president of the United States and an administration that would tear families apart. And so we have to fight. And we have to fight for the best of who we are as a country. We have to understand that there's a lot of misinformation about this issue. First of all, being a nation founded by immigrants, it is wrong to somehow suggest that an undocumented immigrant is a criminal. I've personally prosecuted everything from low-level offenses to homicides. I know what a crime looks like. An undocumented immigrant is not a criminal. Let's look at it in terms of the economic consequence of misinformed policies. Let's look at the fact that in California alone, immigrants are 10% of our workforce. In California alone, they contribute $130 billion to our GDP. Immigrants as a whole in California contribute $56 billion in state and local taxes. Let's look at it in terms of who we are and who we say we are as a country that was founded on ideals that mean we will always fight for justice. I know what is happening on the streets right now in California and in states across this country, New Jersey, Texas, throughout this country where immigrants live. They are in fear. Children don't want to go to school because they are afraid that when they come home, their father or their mother will not be there. Pediatricians are reporting that children are missing critical doctor's appointments out of fear that if they go to the doctor, somehow they will be exposed in a way that they will be reported to ICE or their parents will be reported. We know that there has been an analysis among Latinos in general about whether or not they would report a crime against them or someone else, and 40% expressed reluctance to do so for fear that reporting a crime against themselves or others.
Hey guys, just checking in with you here. It's Molly here in the newsroom in DC, Fox 5 Live. You're watching live senators speaking out on immigration, one of the hottest topics of this week, of today. We also have concurrently going on House hearing on immigration. I'm going to kind of flip it between the two and keep it interesting for you guys, jump it around to different live breaking events that we see. Just checking in. I'm going to leave you guys with this still for now.
That come from these highest bodies in our country that recognize that when there is a victim of rape or domestic violence or fraud, she will not be afraid to run in the street and hail down the passing police officer to make sure that she is safe and that that person is held accountable. The policies that we are experiencing right now out of this administration on this issue of immigration are contrary to that outcome. And so we have to stand up. And we have to stand up and fight for who we are as a country and our ideals. And one of those ideals is guaranteeing that when people are looking at a situation where their liberty is at stake, that we want that they will have the assistance they need to be able to go through that procedure in a way that they will have due process and justice will be the outcome, which is why we have introduced a bill that we have named the Access to Counsel Act, which will require that when anyone who arrives at our border by plane, by bus, by train, or foot, when they ask for access to an attorney, they cannot be denied. So that we can ensure, whatever the outcome of the proceeding, we know that there was due process in the procedure. We know that it was a fair process, because right now, folks who arrive at our border are not allowed access to a counsel. And that is just simply wrong. So part of what we are doing is saying they cannot be denied access to counsel. When they arrive, they should be granted access so that they can be ensured that at least the process will be fair. But in closing, I just want to say that, again, I am so proud of these young, bright Californians and our future leaders. I thank you, Rose, for your fight, and just keep fighting, and we are all in it with you, and we've got your back. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Senators Menendez and Harris. We appreciate you not only being with us here today.
We'll take you over to the House hearing on immigration now, so you can get both sides of that.
Those who prey on immigrant communities. We've heard about from local law enforcement officers. We've heard about notarios. We've heard about people who hold themselves out to be either legal representatives or members of the government. Since the Trump administration has come into power, there are a number, the executive orders have actually led to a sense of mistrust and fear in the community, but it's also led to a number of people standing outside apartment buildings, for example. In one community, I've heard this from several actually, saying, you know, we are with the immigration and we're here to ask you questions. We'd like to see your papers. And then all of a sudden, you have people kind of trying to steal identity and trying to take information from law-abiding members of the community. So specific challenges law enforcement faces involve really policing in a cooperative way in communities that historically have not felt included in law enforcement efforts. And the Trump administration, honestly, I think coupled the actual executive orders that came in January, coupled with rhetoric, honestly, from the campaign trail, together have led to a sense of fear among community members, also a sense of confusion. What are our rights? Where can we go for help? Who can we call? Advocates have been calling us from around the country, thousands actually, asking us, so if a victim tells me she's been raped several times by her husband, and he's actively beating her, do I tell her to call the police or not? We don't know. These are strategies we have for decades now been so lucky to have in this country, the opportunity to tell victims, look, America understands that violence is something we need to prevent. We have laws for that. Call your police officer, he or she will help you. We don't know what to say anymore.
Thank you. Time of the gentleman has expired. Gentleman from Arizona, Mr. Biggs.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for convening this committee hearing today. It's important. I appreciate all the panelists for being here. One of our panelists recently indicated that one or two crimes, we shouldn't focus on one or two crimes that we've seen across America. And yet in one recent 15-month period in Maricopa County, the largest county in Arizona, more than 3,600 criminally violent illegal aliens were released back onto the streets of the state's largest county. There are two things to point out about that. We know they were criminally violent because they had been in the system, charged and convicted of crimes, and yet they were released without being. And so I appreciated particularly Ms. Vaughn mentioning the Grant Ronnebeck case, where Grant, an unfortunate 21-year-old convenience store clerk, had been brutally shot and killed for failing to deliver a pack of cigarettes to a criminally violent illegal alien who had been convicted and yet was on the streets of Maricopa County. And that's why I introduced Grant's Law here in Congress, which should pass. It is a no-brainer, and it requires the very accelerated due process requirements that Ms. Vaughn has mentioned to deport these criminally violent illegal aliens from our country within 90 days. I wanted to talk specifically with regard to you, Ms. Vaughn, with regard to the apprehension rates reported. If we were to look at the apprehension rates historically, we would see that there were consistently over 1 million people, sometimes more than 1.5 million people actually apprehended at the border, and that began to slow down. And 2007 was the first time reported apprehensions actually began declining below 1 million. But all experts talk about apprehensions, border apprehensions, and this is the southern border, versus the multiplier effect of people who actually cross and remain in the country. That those numbers have been, the lowest number I've ever seen reported was opined by several U.S. senators to be about 4 times the actual apprehension rate. Last year, 415,000 illegal aliens were apprehended at the southern border. More than half were other than Mexican nationals coming into this country. So I guess my question for you is if you would please comment on the multiplying effect and whether the numbers were accurate for that 10-year period under the Obama administration where we saw the actual apprehension rate dip as low as 330,000 in 2015, whether that was accurate and how that, in the reporting, please.
Well, unfortunately, the Border Patrol does not have...
We'll go back to some of the questions now being asked at the Senate Democrats presser here, the meeting on immigration. Switching it over to you now.
Communities safer and protecting, including immigrants who are victims of crimes by undocumented, criminals. So I was wondering if, what would be your answer to, for instance, the recent incident in Montgomery County where 2 undocumented immigrants allegedly raped a girl in a high school bathroom, and conservative groups are using that to point to the danger of sanctuary cities, and Jeff Sessions said that they are really risking federal funding if they continue those policies. So how do you respond to both Sessions, Secretary Sessions and the White House that they are not treating everyone like dangerous criminals? And the second question would be, because Senator Hernandez is gone, that was a question for him. The Profile Act basically has provisions that are already law, due process and all of that. So what are the chances of you getting it through a GOP-controlled Congress, and especially when some of those provisions are already in the books? So thank you.
So Profile Act, I'll leave to Senator Hernandez to follow up with you, and I can as well. But on the first point, let's not accept false choices. Okay, so one human being kills another human being, a woman is raped, a child is molested. There is no question in my mind. When the evidence proves that person guilty, lock them up and make sure there is severe, swift, and certain consequence. There's no question. But you cannot characterize a whole population of people based on those incidents, those tragic incidents. And the other reality of it is that you can look at, for example, the memos that have been recent, I think it was February 20th, issued by the Department of Homeland Security, Secretary Kelly, where they've now come out with 7 factors. They've expanded the factors that can be considered and are being considered by ICE agents when they detain individuals and then seek to deport them. And you'll look at that list and you'll see number 1 is convicted of a crime. You'll see number 2 is charged with a crime, so no finding of guilt. You'll look at number 3, which essentially says suspected of a crime. You'll look at number 7, and it's basically leaving all of that to the judgment of that individual ICE officer. During the course of Homeland Security meetings, I've been asking, what kind of training is everybody getting? You're now going to increase this force by almost double, 15,000 new agents, 10 and 5. What kind of training are they going to get? What are the standards going to be? There's been some discussion from officials out of that division, that agency, that they may have to lessen the standards. Really? So not only is it demonstrating that they've not thought it through, it's also demonstrating that they're not equipped to carry out these vague and overbroad policies with trained, experienced professionals who are receiving clear direction from their leaders, because they're not. They're not receiving clear direction from their leaders. And there were individuals who are the supervisors and the actually union representative of agents in those departments that referred to the agency as a bunch of good old boys. See the testimony. Okay, I gotta go.
Thank you, Senator. Appreciate it. Thank you, Senator. Appreciate it. Any other questions? For the families or for us? Go.
You've been doing this for a long time. Is this the worst that it's been between the Hispanic community, the Latino community, and an administration? I mean, is this friction point here in your memory the most disconnected, worst relationship that there has been?
Yes. In all my history, in my career in Washington, D.C., having worked on Capitol Hill, having worked in a previous White House, and having worked at the helm of this organization for nearly 12 years, there's no question that there's a lack of understanding of our community, a lack of empathy for our community, a lack of knowledge of our community and the circumstances we face, but more importantly, a lack of engagement with our community. Not once during either his campaign or during his presidency have I heard President Trump make a positive comment about someone who has come to this country, who has been an immigrant, and who has made contributions. There's something wrong with that. We represent a large swath of this country, now 57 million people in this country, 17% of this country. And we have a president that refuses to acknowledge that we are here making important contributions, adding to the dynamic vitality of this country's economy. Yes, there's something terribly wrong right now. But more importantly, we're seeing our country attacked, our community attacked right now. These are American citizens who have spoken before you today. We're seeing them be victims of separations of a policy that is indiscriminate. And we have to stop the attack on our families. We have to stop the attack on these children and on our community. There are too many lives with hopes and dreams tied behind them that deserve to have their families together. We understand that we have to have a sovereign nation and enforcement, but it's how we enforce our laws that matters. And common sense should be one of the primary factors. Their father, Rose's husband, was not a threat to this country or to our community. It makes no sense to increase by billions of dollars funding for a mass deportation force. It's nonsensical. It's not practical. It's not consistent with our American values. Any other questions? I know we're going to make folks available to do one-on-ones. We ask that you please stick around or go out in the hall. And I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart to Fatima and Uleni, to Rose and Walter, who's been around here. Their courage is remarkable. And, you know, we wanted to bring their stories to light. There are 6 million American children who are at risk because of these wrong-headed deportation executive orders, and because of this request to increase funding for a mass deportation force, we wanted to bring their stories because there are real lives behind those statistics that you hear out there. So I want to thank them for their courage, and I want to thank them for their participation today. Thank you all. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, guys, just checking in with you. Thanks for watching Fox 5 Live. In D.C., we're going to go to just a little bit of a breaking piece of news here that we're getting outside of the White House. When I have more information, I'll bring that to you. Let me jump it over right there.
We're the largest police organization in the United States, representing over 330,000 of America's law enforcement. Majority of the major cities in the country, including Washington, D.C., are represented by the Fraternal Order of Police. We'd just like to say that it's very refreshing to have a 45-minute meeting with the President of the United States, who really wants to know what the issues are in law enforcement, very concerned about what's happening in the major cities and violent crime. And we spent a long period of time discussing those issues, discussing the opioid problems in the country. We're very committed to assisting the President and the Attorney General in the fight on that opiate problem and other issues. And it's just a real pleasure to have a President in the White House that cares about law enforcement's major concerns. So with that, we'd be glad to take any questions.
Thank you. Many major city police chiefs have opined that the increased enforcement of immigration laws and the push against so-called sanctuary cities hurts the relationship between immigrant communities and law enforcement and actually makes it harder for police to do their jobs because immigrants don't want to report crime if they're afraid they're going to be taken into custody for immigration violations. What are your thoughts on the President's push on sanctuary cities?
Well, we believe in enforcing the laws of the country of the United States. We all take an oath and obligation when we take our jobs to enforce the laws. We believe that sanctuary city status is not a good thing for America. We support the President on his sanctuary city initiative, and we especially want to make sure that local law enforcement officers are not afraid to do their jobs and report people that have criminal warrants or detainers to ICE agents. You got to remember, there's no police chief in this country that's a free agent. They work for mayors.
During the meeting, were you aware of the security situation outside the White House?
No.
So the event continued on as planned?
Yeah, we weren't aware of anything outside the White House.
Okay. And what were some of the concerns you brought to the President?
Well, we discussed a number of issues. Safety of law enforcement officers was one of our primary items of discussion. In the last 2 or 3 years, there's been an uptick in ambush-style attacks on law enforcement officers. We talked to the administration, Attorney General Sessions, and the President about those recruitment and retention areas of law enforcement. We're in a crisis in this country, and being able to find qualified police applicants without reducing standards. And we oppose the reduction of standards. We want people that have the mental fortitude to do this job, the right mental capacity, and no criminal records. We think that's important, and we talk to the administration about that.
Thank you.
If you ask President Trump for any particular federal help, do you offer any?
He's said that, and has told us in the past, that they want to continue any of the federal programs that they believe are beneficial. The COPS program, Burn JAG grant funding, wants to work with us to make sure that the dollars are spent in the best way. And we've committed to being a partner with the administration and making sure that rank and file officers will have some input on those federal programs that we think are important, especially in the area of gun violence.
How did the administration indicate they were going to keep up communication with your organization moving forward? How did they indicate they're going to keep up communication back and forth with all of these ideas?
Well, the Fraternal Order of Police has had an ongoing relationship with President Trump when he was candidate Trump, and that line of communication continues to exist. We, quite frankly, enjoy excellent communication with his administration and the Attorney General.
Can you state your name, sir?
My name is Jay McDonald, McDonald, and I'm the Vice President of the Fraternal Order of Police.
Okay, I have a question, like what checks and balances will you implement on San Ysidro Port of Entry? Even Secretary Kelly paid a visit in February there. So what checks and balances do you have in plan or something about San Ysidro Port of Entry?
About Port of Entries?
Yeah.
I don't think that I'm qualified to answer that question.
One more
It's
question.
one of you, Dean Angelo. Dean Angelo, are you here? Yes. Chicago Sun-Times, if you could come to the mic and maybe answer some questions.
I'm here.
Hi.
Hi.
What was your biggest takeaway from the meeting with President Trump, please?
I was
relative to
just
Chicago?
impressed to be in the room with that many high-ranking officials of the administration, and you have the opportunity to speak about Chicago and with my brothers here from the Fraternal Order of Police about the other issues that are going on around our country.
Well, can you be a little more specific, since the president, even in the session, raised the question about Chicago? What's going on? What did you tell him about what's going on in Chicago?
I just mentioned that the police officers want to work, and we need people to support police officers to go back to work so that they can work towards stemming the violence in our city.
And what specifically did you ask for?
I didn't ask for anything.
So since Chicago is a sanctuary city, how does this connect with to cut off federal funds and what we need in Chicago?
Well, I think President Canada
we've already addressed that.
I know you have, but I want to know what Dean Angelo.
Ma'am.
That's okay. I'll let the president.
One more question.
Dean is supporting the national FOP position, and we're very concerned about cutting off the law enforcement funding, but we'll be talking with the administration. Those programs that are necessary to help reduce crime in Chicago, we feel certain the administration is going to work with us to help reduce especially gun violence in the city of Chicago.
Wait, can I ask you,
Thank you.
you said you're looking, really? Okay, well, I just wanted to clarify your comment, but thanks.
He's not qualified to answer.
What are they saying? They're concerned about the sanctuary cities?
All right, guys. So that was the fraternal order of the police that met previously with President Trump earlier this morning in the Roosevelt Room, and we caught them just there, live outside of the White House, taking questions on all those same topics that we've been talking about this morning. So it all kind of links together. Once again, I just want to say, hey, I'm Molly. Thanks for watching Fox 5 Live. We're bringing you live events and breaking news all over the country and the nation, and of course right here in DC as they happen, as they come fed into us. We want to bring them to you. A little quick shot of the guard there outside the White House following that little press avail. Check this out too. Rain, intense rain outside the White House now. So he is currently watching that, or the Marine, I guess, outside of the White House is watching that rain come down in buckets. Rainy day in DC. There it is. Shot of the White House. Not as heavy rain now, but I also want to bring you guys to some other stuff that's happening live. Like the Aaron Hernandez trial is still going on in Boston. Witnesses are on the stand, people that were around Aaron Hernandez at the time of the murder of Alexander Bradley. And we have some live footage of that right now coming out of our sister station in Boston. Let's take a look at that for just a second.
Beach County Sheriff's Office.
For almost 17 years, since May of 2000.
And have you been working in your capacity as the crime scene investigator the entire time you've been with the department?
Yes, I have.
Can you tell us a little bit about your responsibilities as a crime scene investigator with the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Department?
I respond to the crime scene, of course, or I document the scene with photographs, handwritten notes. I collect the evidence, process the evidence, and store it in our evidence unit.
Have your responsibilities changed much in the 17 years since you've been with the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office?
No.
When you say process evidence, what do you mean by that?
I process for fingerprints, swab for DNA.
When you say you process for fingerprints, what do you specifically mean by that?
That I'm using black powder, trying to find ridge detail on the evidence, of course.
Do you then take the further step of making comparisons to known fingerprints?
No, I do not.
Once you've processed a fingerprint, to whose attention do you send that?
I send it to our latent print unit.
And the same for the DNA. In addition to swabbing for DNA, do you do anything further with respect to DNA testing or comparison?
No, I do not.
Where do you forward what you've swabbed for DNA?
That will go to our forensic biology unit.
Ms. Lancaster, can you tell us a little bit about your formal education, starting with any degrees that you've received as part of your work?
I have a bachelor's degree in public management. I have public administration. I have a master's degree in management, and I'm currently working on my master's in criminal justice. I also, through my years at the sheriff's office, have training in numerous forensic courses, different courses such as fingerprinting, crime scene investigation, crime scene processing techniques, evidence collection, DNA.
And those trainings, are those conducted by the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office, or do you have outside training as well?
I have both.
Do you engage in any proficiency testing as part of the work that you do?
I do, yes, because we are ISO accredited.
And when you say we, are you talking about the entire crime lab or just just the crime scene response unit?
No, it's the entire crime lab.
Ms. Lancaster, I want to direct your attention to the early morning hours of February 13th, 2013. Were you working on that date?
I was, yes.
And back in February of 2013 at least, what hours did you typically work?
I work 6 to 4, 6 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon.
Did there come a time at around 7:15 in the morning when you got notified of an incident?
I did, yes, by our dispatch unit.
All right, and what information did you receive?
The only thing that I was told was there was a shooting in the city of Riviera Beach, which is also part of Palm Beach County.
And did you respond to the location where the alleged shooting took place?
I did, yes.
Now, typically, when you respond to a scene such as this, would you go by yourself or with other members of your unit?
It depends on the case. This one I went by myself.
And do you recall the location or the general location where you went?
Yes.
And where was that?
That was at 3715 Fiscal Court in Riviera Beach.
I'm sorry, you have to repeat that.
3715 Fiscal Court in Riviera Beach.
And could you describe the general area for us? What kind of an area is 3715 Fiscal Way?
It looked to be an industrial park.
When you arrived at that location, can you tell us what you saw?
Well, when I first arrived, I met with the deputy that was in the front of the building at 3715, and then he directed me to the rear, or what I would call the rear, the north side of the building. It looked like a loading dock area with a parking lot.
In addition to the deputy that directed you to the rear of the building, did you see any other police personnel there?
There was the Detective Smith, and Detective Frank.
And what is Detective Smith's first name?
Kenny.
And what about Detective Frank's first name?
Her name, well...
Oh, sorry.
Tina.
Tina, okay. Approach what is shown.
You may.
Just ask you to take a few seconds to look at those pictures, Ms. Lancaster. And do you recognize those pictures?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And is it fair to say that those are various pictures taken from the perspective of the roadway looking towards generally the northeast corner or the northeast section of 3715 Fiscal Way?
Yes, it is.
All right. And are those fair and accurate representations of the area behind 3715 as well as the area?
Just a reminder here, guys, checking in. Everything you are watching is live, so it's a little bit rough, raw video of inside this trial that dates back to 2013. I think it was a little bit interesting. Earlier, there was someone testifying who was there with Aaron Hernandez when the whole incident happened and the murder occurred. But we'll leave it here just for a little bit to see what else we can hear, and then we'll bring you to something else live as well.
321 to 324.
Ms. Lancaster, is the monitor in front of you working? Or do you see a screen up there and now a picture?
Yes.
Okay. Showing you what's been marked as exhibit number 321. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
All right. And is the northeast corner of 3715 visible in that photograph?
Yes.
All right. Your screen is actually will allow you to point with your finger. Can you just point to the northeast corner of that building?
It's going to be over here.
Actually, I'll try it. Is that the northeast corner?
Yes.
All right. Oh, you know what? Your screen's too far away from you. So, but is that's the northeast corner of the building?
Yes.
And is there any significance to the northeast corner of that building?
Well, I took measurements off of that northeast corner, but I went back
Okay, so
to
you
around here.
got it. Okay. And showing you 322. That's a photograph that's taken west of that corner. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so in terms of the photograph, it would be to the right of the northeast corner, but in a westerly direction, correct?
Yes.
And showing you 323, that's even further west.
Correct.
Now, you see the yellow tape that's up in that's runs through the middle of exhibit number 323. Do you recognize that?
That's the crime scene tape to restrict access.
I'm sorry?
That's the crime scene tape restricting access to the area.
And was that tape up when you arrived at 3715 on February 13th?
Yes, it was.
All right, guys, jumping out of the Aaron Hernandez trial in Boston, we're going to bring you live stuff as it's happening all around. For example, take a look at this live picture of Phoenix, Arizona. Gorgeous shot, just a little bump shot over what I think is Camelback Mountain and that area of Phoenix from our sister station there. Also want to direct you to a cool video from Monday. Take a look at this footage from Mount Etna. As you know, or maybe you listened to our show earlier last week, you can even hear the sound that goes along with this. This is dramatic video of the burning hot lava flowing down the side of Mount Etna on Monday. Had some violent eruptions last month that we tried to take to air at some points in our morning show and throughout. And this is the orange lava coming out of it. If you didn't know, the last major eruption of Mount Etna was in 1992. So just some shots of that lava. Pretty stunning stuff. Now over to the House. David Cicilline looks like he is speaking here. He is a former mayor of Providence, actually, when I lived there, Providence, Rhode Island. Take you over there now.
To do the work of ICE are making immigrants, both documented and undocumented, afraid to leave their homes, go to the grocery store, and send their children to school, as well as to help local law enforcement in fighting crime. There are also reports that domestic violence and sexual assault crimes victims are afraid to report these crimes for fear of being apprehended themselves. Many of the witnesses in today's hearing have suggested that the immigrant community is disproportionately responsible for crime. So I would ask unanimous consent, Mr. Chairman, to include in the record two reports. One from the Sentencing Project that found foreign-born residents of the United States commit crime less often than native-born citizens, and another study by the Cato Institute comparing incarceration rates by migratory status that comes to the same conclusion. And despite the suggestion
Without objection, the material will be included in the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And despite the suggestion of Mr. Smith that this relates to doesn't distinguish between illegal and legal immigrants. The report says, and I quote, "A few studies using other data sources to differentiate the legal status have supported the conclusion that immigrants, regardless of legal status, do not have higher crime rates than native-born citizens," and there are 3 studies to support that. So I want to set the record straight that that underlying claim is simply not true. I'd also ask unanimous consent to introduce into the record a letter from February 28, 17, signed by a number of law enforcement leaders across the country criticizing the shifting of the burden of federal immigration law onto local law enforcement agencies.
Without objection, that will be included as well.
Thank you. And Ms. Pite, I'd ask you, hundreds of law enforcement agencies throughout the United States have adopted community trust policies. These agencies, everywhere from Michigan to California to Ohio, report that such policies, far from increasing crime, actually reduce it. And recent comprehensive studies have supported these claims statistically, showing that community trust jurisdictions are demonstrably safer than their counterparts. So why is that? Can you help us understand why communities where these trust jurisdictions are actually protecting our constituents and providing safer communities, less crime, why is that happening?
Thank you very much, Congressman. I think you actually said it yourself. You said that the former chief in your jurisdiction indicated it's really that trust between the community and the police officers that allows for thorough reporting by victims. It allows for cooperation as witnesses. It allows for investigations into community, knocking on doors and finding those witnesses who want to respond and offer what they've seen, what they've heard. There's really no way to prosecute and investigate crime committed by anyone, whether it's a citizen or a legal immigrant or an undocumented immigrant. There's really no way to prosecute crime without participation of residents in the community. And so that trust is the #1 thing we're looking for.
And you made some reference to an example of a case in which there had been someone who was murdered who, without the presence of 2 witnesses. Are there other instances that you're aware of around the country where individuals have either been unwilling or unable to come forward because of their immigration status? And how do you think the Trump policy or the Trump administration's policies are making that either more likely or less likely to happen? And what's the impact on the safety of our communities as a result?
Thank you, Congressman. Yes, I am aware of a number of cases around the country that really resonate with what I was sharing earlier. I would say that one of the things that happens is that when a person is afraid to come forward and report crime or share information as a witness, our hands are tied behind our back in terms of investigating. We also don't then have a lot of media reports, for example, about those individuals because, as stated, they are too afraid to come forward. And so we don't get the splash that we might get otherwise in these situations. I do know that in El Paso, when there was an ICE pickup of a woman while she was receiving her protection order, a message was sent loud and clear across the country, especially to survivors of violence. If you use the criminal justice system to report the crime committed against you by an abuser, if you pursue what our system is here to offer, which is a protection order, safety for you and your family, you could be a victim of an arrest by ICE in that moment and possibly deported. And so that had a very significant chilling effect that our national hotlines, our national advocates, and coalitions across the country that work on domestic violence have been reporting in the last month and a half or so, a very significant drop-off.
Mr. Chairman, I would just say that...
the gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Louisiana, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank all of you for being here. I know it's been a long day. We're almost done. Sheriff, my first question is for you. Last year, I was a legislator in Louisiana, state legislator, and in 2016, I co-authored a bill to prohibit local governments and state agencies from adopting sanctuary policies in our state. We were going to penalize them by taking away their ability to borrow money for certain projects from our state bond commission unless they complied with the federal law. Ultimately, what happened down there was quite a saga. Our Democrat governor, with the assistance of a few local law enforcement officials in the New Orleans area, killed our legislation. They argued that our efforts were political pandering and that this was something that should remain solely a federal issue. So I just was curious from your perspective as a law enforcement official on the ground, as it were. You're the top law enforcement official in your county. I know that your state doesn't have such a ban, but if such a statute was presented in Massachusetts, or in other states for that matter, do you think that's something that would be helpful?
All right, guys, quickly out of that and over to Memphis, where we're going to find some live coverage of convicted cop killer Trevino. Let me get the name right. Trevino Campbell is to be sentenced. This is live raw video. I'm going to bring you over there from our sister station in Memphis.
Or 16 when I can start making something, and I'm gonna be on my toes. That page is I'll be on the list. Yeah, when I make some, I had to divide it for everybody. Alright, I'll see you guys.
He may be talking to the prosecutor all day now. Right there, just giving everybody a break. Mr. Massey.
And as we wait for this sentencing, gonna bring you back to Boston for some evidence that's coming out, some pictures from the Aaron Hernandez trial. We'll keep an eye on this one as well.
Counsel, let me see you up here.
All right, guys, I guess that feed has at least paused or perhaps ended. So let's take you back to the House floor. This hearing should be wrapping up in not too long, but they mentioned that they had been going all day, so they're quite tired. But let's go back there just for a moment.
Reimbursement funding tied to specific cooperation, and that is honoring ICE detainers. In other words, if a jurisdiction is not honoring ICE detainers, then they become ineligible for SCAP funding. I think that would be a simple fix to the program that would be more directly relevant to the situation today.
Time of the gentleman has expired. The gentlewoman from Texas, Ms. Jackson Lee, will bat cleanup.
Let me thank the chairman and ranking member for a very important hearing. Let me ask just a straightforward question that deals with fixing the immigration laws and allowing individuals to come from out of the shadows and distinguishing individuals who are here opposed to criminals and others who happen to be on status. Mr. Hodgkins, would you support comprehensive immigration reform? Yes or no?
Congressman, I've been working on that for 20 years, going back to the days of Henry Hyde and Barney Frank. I've worked on the first bill that made it through the
Thank
House.
you. I was probably around at that time, sir. Good to see you. Ms. Vaughn, would you support comprehensive immigration reform?
No, I think it makes much more sense. We
Thank
learned
you.
from
Let me go on to Mr. Arthur.
I would probably recommend enforcement of the immigration laws.
Would you
that we have.
support comprehensive immigration reform? It takes into account enforcement. If you look at the concept of the Gang of Eight, it takes into enforcement. Would you support it?
I would have to look at the particulars
All right,
of any legislation.
Ms. Fayo, let me.
Piatti, yes.
Yeah, yes.
Yes,
Would you support-
Congresswoman, I would support it.
Thank you so very much. Let me quickly move forward on my questioning. All of us were appalled at the killing of Kate Steinle and others who have suffered. But if we were to correlate that tragedy to high crime work with non-status people, as Republicans have tried to do, San Francisco then would have a high murder rate. And as of 2015, there was no rise in San Francisco's murder rate in the 26 years it has had, in quotes, a sanctuary city. In fact, the city's murder rate has fallen to its lowest level in decades, which I think is a very important point. The other point is that I would ask a yes or no question. Do you think in the context of unstatus that we're trying to deport the bad hombres that President Trump said? Is that, Sheriff, what your focus would be, the bad hombres? Yes or no?
That's exactly what the priority is.
Thank you. Ms. Vaughn?
According to the Department of
Yes or
Homeland
no?
Security, there are about 2 million criminal
All right,
aliens
Ms.
in the
Arthur?
country, and we should make them the top of the priority for deportation. Of course, you know, others
Thank
are
you.
appropriate
Ms.
to
Arthur?
deport as
Mr.
well.
Arthur, I'm so sorry.
In my court, Ms. Jackson Lee, I would see many individuals for a long period of time. I would see individuals who had committed serious domestic violence
So you would
offenses.
think that the bad elements should be the top priority, the bad hombres?
Unfortunately, I saw those people disappear from my court, and I don't know why.
But
So
I'm
yes,
still
I think that we should definitely remove individuals who commit serial drunk driving offenses, like the chairman spoke about.
All right.
Horrible
Thank you so very
domestic
much.
violence offenses.
Piatti,
Sure.
your view of that?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Congresswoman. I
And
certainly.
I'm only rushing because I want to ask you a lengthier question. So it's just yes or no. Do you think it should be focused on the bad hombres that should be deported?
I think we should be focusing on those with serious criminal violations. Yes.
Thank you so very much. I'd like to offer into the record this comment. Trump supporter thought president would only deport bad hombres. Instead, her husband is being deported. Months later, after she voted, Roberto Burstein, her husband, a successful businessman, respected member of his Indiana town, and father of 3 American-born children, languishes in a detention facility with hardened criminals as he awaits his deportation back to Mexico, the country he left in 1998 when he entered the United States illegally. I ask unanimous consent for that to be put into the record.
Without objection.
Thank you. I also ask unanimous consent to be put into the record the statement of the Travis County Sheriff's Office policy on cooperation with the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement to negate any suggestion that the so-called sanctuary cities label is that cities are not cooperating with ICE. I ask unanimous consent to put that into the record.
Without objection.
And I also ask to put into the record this statement from the constitutional lawyers that this is unconstitutional. The order by Sessions and the President of the United States to penalize cities and deny them their money. I hope one of them will sue. I ask unanimous consent.
Reserving the right to object, who are these constitutional lawyers?
I'm losing my time. I will pull that back. May I ask a question of Ms. Piatti?
Reserving the right to object, I'd like to find out.
Are you going to give me extra time? I have a question for Ms. Piatti, Mr.
Well,
Chairman.
just to answer my question, you've been asking.
There is a long list of, how many is it, staff? How much? No, they're more than that. They said they're representing 292, and they're from UC Irvine, University of San Francisco, Denver, and SMU, Dedman School of Law, Southern Methodist. And there are 292. I can get those names. They're not attached to the letter right now.
The ranking member says she has already put that in the record.
Thank you. And may I ask my question?
Will you withdraw your unanimous consent request?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you.
May I ask Ms. Piatti the question, please?
Well, I ask unanimous consent the gentlewoman from Texas be given an additional minute.
I thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Piatti, I am very familiar with the center. I think you know Marty down in Texas, and we've been very close working on it.
All right, guys, just checking in with you here. It's Molly here in Washington, D.C. You're watching Fox 5 Live. Little shot of the White House. That's a live picture outside the White House, and we're bringing you live events and news. Looks like there's a little more evidence, a little more stuff coming down in the Aaron Hernandez trial. Kind of an interesting feed that I want to throw it to, so I'm going to push you back up to Boston in just a second. But we want to make sure that we're connecting with you, and feel free to comment and talk to me on YouTube, and also use our hashtag and our handles. We're Fox5DC on Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, everything. Really follow us at that handle, and you can use that hashtag Fox5Live as well to tweet at us and let us know what you have to say. So let's go back up to Boston for this live trial. Just as it stays interesting, we'll bring it to you live.
DNA, right?
Correct.
And you did everything you could to make sure it was not contaminated, right?
Correct.
Now, you know that the results of the DNA, don't you?
No, I don't get those results.
You were not made aware of the results of the DNA?
No, I am not.
Okay. So then I gather it's fair to say you have no information that would connect that shell casing or cartridge to Mr. Aaron Hernandez?
No, I do not.
Now, when you were at the scene, when you first got called on February 13th at 7:14, you finished at 9:45, right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, Mr. Lee showed you a number of photographs, okay? A lot of photographs. There they are. There's the rest of them. I'm going to put on the Elmo 321. Okay, you see that?
Yes.
Okay, now, when you were discussing the crime scene tape that was placed at the scene here because you wanted to preserve what you thought based on the communications you had received was important, was any crime scene tape placed beyond that corner here?
I think that was in the front, where the deputy was in the front.
Okay, so it's on the other side of the building?
Correct.
Okay, but you don't see any crime scene tape down here, do you?
I don't see it in that photo, no.
And you didn't place any crime scene tape down that alley, did you?
No.
And you didn't place any crime scene tape down the little alley street that goes in front of that building, correct?
No, because I don't do that.
Okay, because your narrative did not include securing that area of the location where around the shooting, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so if there was any specific evidence related to the shooting that was down here or to the front of that building, you wouldn't know because you didn't process that area.
And I was not made aware of that.
Right, I understand that. We understand that. Okay, now, you did process, and Mr. Lee showed you the dumpster picture, right? 322?
Yes.
Okay. Now, the scene tape, is that to indicate that it's beyond the dumpster this way or that way?
It's going to the east.
Okay. Could you just draw a little arrow that way?
Oh, I don't know if that
I
works.
know. Believe me, you're having better luck than I have with this then. Okay. So, you didn't process anything in that dumpster, did you?
No.
As a matter of fact, as far as you're aware, nothing was even searched in that dumpster, right?
As far as I know, no.
Okay. Now, you were very careful because you were told this is where the victim had been shot in the area around 327, right?
I don't know where the victim was shot. I
You do not
was
know.
just
Okay.
directed to the blood-like substance there.
Okay. But you did take photographs, close-up photographs of that area, correct?
Yes.
All right, and let's see, we can, okay, now here's James. Okay, you know how lucky I am with this thing. We want to enlarge this and zoom in. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Uh-huh.
All right, guys, we'll take you back over to Memphis, where we're awaiting the sentencing of a convicted cop killer, Trevano Campbell. Let's see if we have any action over there as this trial in Boston slows up. And just for your reference, unless you're in those areas of the country and watching their local Fox, our sister stations there, or in that courtroom, you wouldn't be able to see these trials happen. So it's kind of interesting to bring you from one to the next. I hope you're finding it interesting. Let's bring you over there now. We'll see if anything happens in the next few moments or few minutes, and then we'll jump around to something else.
Are you married? Married? Kids? Okay, man. I wish I had done this one. My younger, I wish I had gone grandchild, just a couple of times with my kids. That's why I don't mind being here now, man, because I think when you get a grandpa, that's great. You got children, you got 3 to 4-year-old. I miss my daughter growing up because I worked so much. Traffic, it wore me out. My wife, you know, I mean, bless your heart, it's too much time. I saw the fix it. Oh, he back there.
All right, guys, not a lot of action coming out of there in Memphis, but some changes in the witnesses and some of the action up in Boston. We're going to switch you back up to the Aaron Hernandez trial.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Hagan. Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Would you please introduce yourself to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury and spell your last name for the record?
My name is Kenny William Smith, S-M-I-T-H.
What is your current employment, sir?
Currently work for the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office in South Florida.
How long have you worked for the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Department?
Just shy of 17 years.
During that 17 years, sir, can you tell what particular specialized units you've been assigned to?
I started out on road patrol, did a year as an FTO, which is a field training officer. Then I was promoted into the Violent Crimes Division Homicide Unit in 2005.
How many years were you in the Violent Crimes Homicide Unit, Palm Beach County Sheriff's Department?
For 11 years. I left in July of last year.
And where are you currently assigned, sir?
Currently assigned to the Homeland Security Division, Airport Division.
You indicated your assignment on the Major Crimes Homicide Unit. Can you describe what particular incidents you would respond to during your assignment there, sir?
We did all homicides, suicides, equivocal deaths, any kind of overdoses, anything the sheriff deemed necessary that his homicide unit would attend to, and any kind of shooting, stabbings, basically persons crimes, aggravated batteries and whatsoever.
Detective Smith, I'm going to call your attention now to a particular incident at a particular date, the date being February 13th, the year 2013. Sometime after 6 o'clock in the morning, did you receive a call to respond to a particular area?
I did, by my Sergeant Dan Bowling.
Do you know about what time that call came in?
I don't recall exactly when, but it was somewhere between 6 and 7 in the morning.
Was it light out at that time or still dark, if you recall?
It was starting to get light out.
When you, did you respond to the scene, sir?
I did.
About how long did it take you to get there?
If I remember right, I was coming from home. It only takes maybe about 15 minutes.
When you arrived at the scene, Detective, were you the first person from the major case/homicide unit there?
I don't believe I was. I think my boss beat me.
Did you, were you given some type of specialized assignment related to this investigation?
I was assigned as a lead investigator on this one.
What does that mean, sir?
I am the lead detective. The case is mine, so everything comes to me, comes through me.
Detective Smith, can you describe generally what you observed at the crime scene as far as potential evidence and whether or not the crime scene was secure?
The crime scene was secure. There were several deputies around. Crime scene tape was up. I remember seeing a hat on the ground, some blood-like substance. I believe you just heard from Elizabeth. Also, shell casing.
So you saw those items at the scene, sir?
I did.
And did you walk around the scene and were various items of evidence pointed out to you?
They were, yes.
And additionally, sir, did you also speak to the first responding officers, including a deputy named Mac Davis?
I did.
And based upon that information, sir, did you also become aware that there were some civilian witnesses at the scene who had been interviewed?
Yes.
Calling your attention now to the victim of the incident, or the injured party, did you become aware of what his name was?
Eventually, yes. Alexander Bradley.
What, if anything, did you do, Detective Smith, relative to Alexander Bradley? What was your understanding as to his location at that time, sir?
When I was initially at the scene, he was at the hospital, and I was given information. I believe he was going to surgery.
Which hospital was that, sir?
St. Mary's Hospital in West Palm Beach.
Is that one of the major hospitals in the West Palm Beach area?
It is. It's our major trauma center for the north end of the county.
So have you been there on numerous occasions in the course of your career as a detective?
Far too many, yes.
At some point that day, this being February 13th, 2013, did you travel to the St. Mary's Medical Center in an effort to see what Mr. Bradley's status was?
I did, and he was in surgery at that time.
Was he, in surgery? I assume he was not conscious, is that right?
No.
And following checking on Mr. Bradley, sir, did you become aware that he was going to survive his injuries?
I did, yes.
And calling your attention now to the very next day, Detective Smith, being February 14th, the year 2013, did you go to Mr. Bradley's hospital room?
I did.
And when you went to Mr. Bradley's hospital room, did you come equipped with some type of recording device?
I did. I had a digital recorder with me.
What was the purpose of that, Detective?
To try to attempt to get a statement from him so I can further along the investigation.
What was Mr. Bradley's condition upon your arrival the next day, February 14th, 2013?
He was awake and cognizant. I'd spoken to the staff just to see if there's any kind of possibility if he was on some heavy pain medication. may not be able to get a very good statement out of him. Said he wasn't, and when I talked to him, he seemed fine.
To your understanding, sir, and also not only your understanding as an investigating detective, but also from your own observations of Mr. Bradley when you saw him in person on February 14th, 2013, what was his condition, or what was the nature of his injury, sir?
He definitely had an injury to his head. I believe it was his right eye, and I think there was one on his hand. I can't remember. I'm not sure.
Now, from an investigative perspective, as a lead detective at that point, sir, was there any ballistic evidence that you were able to recover from the hospital purportedly removed from Mr. Bradley?
There was a small piece of lead.
How small?
It was just a little tiny piece.
And based upon your observations of Mr. Bradley and your review of that particular evidence, do you know where the remainder of the projectile went?
I do not. No,
Did you observe at any point in the course of your investigation some photographs of Mr. Bradley, the right side of his head?
I did, yes.
When you observed the photographs, again, pursuant to your investigation of the right side of Mr. Bradley's head, did you observe anything that appeared to be holes?
I did, yes.
All right, guys, if you don't know a little background information about this, just quickly, Aaron Hernandez is already serving a life sentence for a June 2013 execution-style slaying of another person who was 27 years old, another guy. He's appealing his first-degree murder conviction in that case. And this is his double murder case being tried now. And I'm not for sure if this is in Boston. I know Boston, our sister station there, Fox 25, is covering this, is getting this for us live. And I'm not positive if it's taking place up in Boston or down in West Palm Beach area where this sheriff is from, where a lot of the sheriffs who investigated that are, because that's where that second murder took place of Alexander Bradley. You probably heard his name being spoken. So anyway, just a little background information on that. Pretty interesting stuff because it feels like you're right there in the courtroom, Law and Order style. We'll leave it on here for just a second and bring you some more live events shortly.
Statement of Alexander Bradley from his hospital bed on February 14th, the year 2013.
Yes, sir, I did.
And that exhibit, for the record, has already been entered in evidence. Is it fair to state, Detective Smith, that Mr. Bradley was not particularly forthcoming in that interview?
He was not, no.
Based upon that interview with Mr. Bradley on the 14th of February of the year 2013, what did you do next in your investigation?
I pretty much put the case on the shelf because at that point he wasn't cooperative with my investigation. I had very little, if any, evidence at that point, and without a victim in the state of Florida, we don't have any kind of investigation at that time.
Now, Detective, were you aware that, well, let me rephrase that. Are you aware that clothing was secured from Mr. Bradley's person when he arrived at the hospital?
I was, yes.
In addition to clothing, Detective, did you become aware of whether or not he had any type of bracelet on his wrist?
I believe so, yes. There was one.
And do you recall what that bracelet said?
Next Level Club, I believe.
And what, if anything, did you do, Detective, related to Next Level Club in an attempt to determine the potential whereabouts of Mr. Bradley prior to his shooting?
I researched a lot of the clubs within Palm Beach County and Broward County. I don't remember if I went as far south as Miami, but I never found anything in our immediate area to indicate the Next Level Club on anything that we had.
And Detective, just calling your attention to, again, Mr. Bradley's status as you described, the gunshot wound you observed and the fact he had surgery. Are you aware of if he was treated for a number of days at St. Mary's Medical Center before being released?
I believe so, yes.
Most of this woman's 101.
May I approach the witness, sir?
You may.
Detective Smith, I'm showing you a document that's 174 pages. Does this appear to be the medical records of Alexander Bradley based upon his treatment starting on February 13th, the year 2013, sir?
It appears as such, yes, sir.
Your Honor, I believe by agreement I offer the 174-page medical record subject to redaction. No objection.
I'll see you at sidebar. I know you don't.
All right, guys, looks like we lost that feed. Thanks for joining me. I'm Molly Nevola here in DC. You're watching Fox 5 Live. I'm live here in our newsroom. Quick shot of bump shot of Phoenix for you. It's a gorgeous shot overlooking the city of Phoenix from our sister station out there. Just I think it's KSAZ overlooking Camelback Mountain outside of Phoenix. And it looks like we might have some action coming down on this Memphis trial that we're getting in live in Memphis. Convicted police murder who is awaiting his sentencing. Let's see if there's some movement there.
How about August the 7th?
That's fine, Your Honor. This case will be assigned to Ms. Leopard.
Okay.
That should be okay, thank you.
Yep. Yes, sir.
It's Christian Ball on the docket date. Petition is suspended. Ms. Fowler is here. Judge, we respectfully ask your Honor if we can do one more date, one additional date, for Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. I've got April 24th, April
Is it
26th.
just a probation hearing?
Yes, Judge, it's a sentencing hearing.
Fairly, probably 30, 45-minute hearing.
About tomorrow?
That's fine then. With me, I don't know if it's fine with Mr.
I'm sorry, Judge. I'm sorry.
Or next, by next Wednesday, the 5th?
That's fine, Judge.
That's fine.
Okay.
Thank you, Judge.
Judge, if I could address you on some of Mr. Johnson's cases.
April the 5th?
I just need some resets on Mr. Johnson's cases, sorry. Marcus Macklin, if you could get a date on that.
Marcus Macklin?
No response, Your Honor.
I don't know where he went, Your
Been
Honor.
looking for Mr. Macklin for a while.
Yeah, I think he's one of those, like, Mr. Bolger, he just leaves him. I don't know if you want to hold it open and see if he shows up.
All right, guys, not a lot of action coming out of there. I don't really see much movement in that case. And yeah, I just wanted to bring it back to us here in the studio. So my name is Molly Nevola, and you're watching me right now live here in the newsroom, trying to bring you interesting events that are happening live everywhere so that you can kind of get an inside look as to what is interesting and kind of stay on top of trending topics and news. And just so you know, just a reminder, as always, you can get at us with our hashtag and our handle, Fox5DC. That's every platform, and then Fox 5 Live. Don't forget to message me, chat me up on the YouTube stream, and follow me as well. And we'll have more for you in the coming days. But for now, I'm Molly, and we're doing this live every day, mostly midday, 11 to 1 o'clock or so for now, but potentially has the potential to change. But thanks so much for watching. We're going to round it out with a shot of the White House for you. And a little shot of inside the White House, where the White House press briefing is slated to start, but sometimes it doesn't start on time and might not come out very soon. So we'll leave you with this shot and round it out. But we'll see you all soon. Thanks.